Desta, very welcome arta dagan Kroeder Kroghen. Graham Sandakokati wama arta view, in lay love day Jenkin, redu claf and clafji in Saitama. Gemahi lemon o kerbeth were crotches, Wuzil berens were higar. Loveday Jenkin can't be with us today after being in hospital for some work on her leg. So, let's start by sending her our best wishes. Gohemanado and Gwelavis Loveday. Later in today's programme, we'll be hearing some new Cornish words by Tim Saunders to a much-loved piece of music. We also start a new series, Kevres Noas, about the links between Cornwall, Kernewek, and Brittany, Breton. Mes Kenzes Henna, Otoma Kezkos, in Trebuff, ha Roger Holmes, in Kever Kezkazilian Sport Haguario Europic. I recently spoke to Roger Holmes of Liscard, who has just returned from a conference in Berrien in Brittany. I first asked Roger where exactly Berrien is and what was the conference about.
Yes, Berrien is a small tiny clay village about 35 kilometres south of Morlaix. In fact, the tiny clay works owned by ECLP, which makes it seem very much at home. There is there a purpose-built wrestling centre built by the Breton Federation of Wrestling, and every April a number of Cornish wrestlers are invited over there for an intensive coaching week. But this year, in parallel with that, there was also a symposium with delegates coming from a wide area of Europe to discuss the condition of a wide range of traditional games and sports throughout Europe.
Where did these delegates actually come from?
Well, they came from far away as Iceland, from Denmark, Germany, Friesland, Scotland, Wales, Val d'Aosta in the north of Italy, and Cornwall and Brittany, of course.
The situation of wrestling in Cornwall perhaps is less strong than it used to be, but I think there's a fairly good awareness of the peculiar nature of Cornish wrestling. Did this feature in the talks?
Oh yes, indeed. The state of Cornish wrestling, I think, is not too unhealthy now. It's getting better with the Cornish Wrestling Association promoting it, and also the International Federation of Celtic Wrestling, which represents Cornish wrestling, Breton wrestling, backhold wrestling, as practiced in the north of England and particularly in Scotland, and also from very recent time, one of the traditional Icelandic styles known as glima.
Apart from the wrestling aspect, are the other traditional games and sports in these various parts of Europe facing problems and pressures as to their survival?
Oh, indeed they are, yes. One thing made abundantly clear by the presentations made by the delegates was the enormous range, enormous cultural richness in Europe of traditional games and sports. But many of these are finding it hard to survive now, simply for such mundane reasons as, for example, new industrial estates or new road development ploughing up the land on which they have traditionally been played for centuries and leaving nowhere safe where they can be played now. Little things like that, but big things to the community, of course.
At the end of this symposium, what sort of resolutions were reached and what will the outcome be, do you think?
Well, it became very clear that our lives would be greatly impoverished if these games and sports were allowed to die away, so therefore some solution had to be found. And much the same argument has applied to many of the lesser-used languages in Europe, and for these, a Bureau of Lesser-Used Languages was created under the European Commission aegis, and we are now writing to every member of the European Parliament with a view to gaining their support for a similar body to support the traditional games and sports.
That was Roger Holmes talking with me about the recent symposium held at Berrien about minority games and sports in Europe. I'm Pithian Nessatravu. Well, recently we heard on Kroeder Kroghen from Tim Saunders about his writings in Cornish. Tim has written some moving words in Cornish to the well-known tune by Sibelius, Finlandia. I'll just run through the meaning of the words with a close English translation. Here we go. On behalf of my country, I shall sing now to thee, O great Lord, above every country in the world, and ask for thy protection on her children, at home or scattered abroad through all the earth. Against every wrong, give them strength to stand, make her clean of every vile oppression. I shall sing to thee of people who were brave at sea, who guarded the frontier against cruel enemies, who placed long roads across the country, built strong walls with the granite, without bending knee before anybody except before thee, in time of peace or battle. And to thee, I shall sing of our men of knowledge, who gave us the secrets of holy nature, and of our poets, who put a song in the voice, 1,000 surpassing painters, who netted the colours of the heaven. Most of all, I shall sing to thee, every one who gave his life for our freedom. That was Tim Saunders and his wife Blod singing the new words in Cornish to Sibelius' tune of Finlandia. Halemen near there the ran genza agan kevres noath. And now we come to the first part of our new series. As the summer approaches, many people in Cornwall will be making plans to cross the channel to our near neighbours in Brittany, Brecon Bean. Whether travelling as tourists or as part of a twinning association, with a school party or sporting organisation, there are many historical and modern-day links to find between Cornwall and Brittany. Today we begin a new series to try and discover a little more about the real Brittany and her people. In the first part of our series, I talked to Ken George, married to a Breton and a fluent speaker of Breton, the closest language to our own Cornish language. I start by asking Ken when he first travelled to Brittany and what were his impressions.
Well, I first went to Brittany some 13 years ago. I went by sea in a yacht, and I came onto the north coast and was very surprised, pleasantly surprised, to find estuaries there, much like the south coast of Cornwall, so similar that I could almost feel myself in Cornwall.
A pipa hebelepter is to gwellas into Kernewek Brecon Bean and Duduna.
The most obvious similarities were the place names, apart from the scenery. As in Cornwall, there are many names in Tray, and plenty also in Care, which would be Car in Cornwall, and many in Plew as well, meaning a parish, of which there are only a few left in Cornwall.
Hagan tenna an integrity a viscus and yes Bretonic.
Yes, I learnt Breton largely because I thought it necessary for someone thoroughly to know Breton in order to improve Cornish. Breton is the closest language to Cornish. So I went to Brittany, and at that time, knowing quite a bit of Cornish, was able to pick up Breton in a short time. The great advantage in Brittany, of course, is there are still thousands of people, though unfortunately rather older people, who still speak Breton as their native everyday language.
Hagan Jesma, a Buderf Bos Bunans has spirits and bobble in Breton Dian Huafin Few.
Oh, certainly the Breton spirit is very much alive in Brittany, and I think rather stronger on the whole than in Cornwall. But that's not surprising when you think that Cornwall has been under English domination for over 1,000 years, whereas Brittany has been under French domination for only over 400 years.
Mura Gornuyo Lemon Nara Tremena and more Papaf Spenin Nabus Termin in Breton Dian. A Buderf Hilamti Capel Swath Bunans Gwir and Bobble. Pool of the threads of the minus couples Hensel and Havizi.
Cornish people going to Brittany this summer will certainly be able to find Breton culture, both in the highways and in the byways. In the highways there are the festivals, such as the Fête de Cornwall in Quimper in July, which is a real feast of singing and dancing, and followed by the Inter-Celtic Festival in Lorient in early August. On the other hand, if you're out in the country, keep a lookout for the sign Fest Nos, Festnoz, and this is a dance which lasts all night in summer, not ending until dawn. Plenty of Breton music, dancing and singing. Well worth a visit to get an idea of Breton culture.
That was Ken George talking with me about some of his initial impressions of Brittany. If you're in Brittany this summer, try and look out for a rural Fest Nos. And in next week's Kroeder Kroghen with Rod Lyon, I'll be talking to Richard Jenkin about the early migrations of the ancient British peoples to their new land of Little Britain, Breton Vihan, or Brittany. Lemon and Dave Liver. Now for the diary. One piece of information to remind you that next weekend at the Pontsmere Hotel in Perranporth, the Kernewek Kernel, the conference on Cornwall, will be meeting again on both Saturday and Sunday, hearing reports from working groups on various aspects of life in Cornwall, and also discussing the legal situation of Cornwall within Great Britain and some aspects of stanary law. So that's next weekend at the Pontsmere Hotel, Perranporth, Kernewek Kernel. Halemen agantolam you devedas arta the gorfen. There we are. Our time has run out on us once again. So finally from me, Graham Sandercock, Dugenachui. Goodbye for now. Dugenachui all agan Kroeder Kroghen.